Hey, girls. Good buddy. Come on, dude. Come on, bud. No, wrong way, mama. Come on, mama. Come on, mama. Hey. Come on, mama. Bring him up, mama. Whole herd's waiting on you two. Come on, buddy. Come on, mama. Good job, buddy. Go ahead. Not through there, buddy. Good job, mama. Good job, mama. Good morning, everybody. Another picture perfect spring morning. Sun shining, birds are chirping. The grass is extremely wet from nice cold temperatures overnight. This long stuff is capturing lots of moisture dew this morning. Will help keep it growing. I'll have to interlay a video later on this afternoon when I come out for their afternoon move and show you the crazy contrast of strip grazing, especially in this pasture. This has always been, this lease pasture, this one in particular, has always been a very obvious, you can obviously tell where the cows have been grazing. It's like a straight green line of what they're moved on to, what they haven't touched, and then behind them, what they have been grazing. So I just wanted to talk real quick. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week or so because this rotation for this pasture is different than what I have done in the past. I've talked about it a little bit, but normally they're not out on this leased pasture, this leased acreage, until right after July. So I kind of plan my breeding schedule around moving the cows out here, and in the last couple years they've come out here after breeding. So they've spent half of July and then through the fall. Look at the herd getting this tall stuff. And so this is a great picture of what I wanted to bring up, and that's context. You know, the soil health principles are things that I try and keep in mind when I'm making my decisions. One of them is context, and that is the newest one, the newest soil health principle, but it's also the newest one for me, something that I never even really considered or thought about until recently. And context obviously is relatable to any size operation, no matter how you do things, but I feel like it's very important for small producers like myself, small operations, small farms, small ranches, simply because what is going to work for you is not going to work for the majority of people out there, majority of operations out there, and the majority of information that you can get. When I decided that raising cattle was something that I wanted to do on our land, I spent about 2 years doing a lot of research, reading everything I could read, listening, watching, just trying to digest and learn as much as I could before the first animals showed up. And one thing that I failed to consider during that entire time doing that was context. there's many different contexts to be thinking about, let's put it that way. Location is a big one. You know, if you're reading information on how to raise cattle out west, that's not really gonna translate into how to raise cattle in the Midwest. If you're reading information on, you know, finishing grass-fed beef in Argentina or Brazil, or even the Southeast, that's not going to translate, the Southeast of the United States, that's not necessarily going to translate into my area. So these were things that I didn't think about, but probably the biggest thing that I just never even considered when it came to context was the size of the operations, of the information that I was getting, the people I was learning from, in relation to the size of my operation. How I manage the cattle and what my pastures look like is going to be completely different than what I expected. A great example is one of the first books I read because I knew that I wanted to be in a grass-based system. I can't remember who it was from, but it was called Greener Pastures on Your Side of the Fence. Amazing book. I've got so many highlighted sections in there because it's a wealth of information. However, I did not take into the context that this producer came from a dairy system in a completely different part of the United States. And you may or may not know, when it comes to dairy, I mean, it translates over to beef as well, but when it comes to dairy, it's very important that those animals are staying on young, tender, growing forages. If you are doing a grass-based dairy, they absolutely need to be having the most protein, the most energy possible every single day, because those cows need to be producing the most milk possible with no outside inputs, with no, grain inputs, anything like that. When I first started, I was obsessed. And you watch Greg Judy's, you watch, really any of those guys, Jim Garish's, you read their books, you watch their videos, you listen to them on podcasts. It's so easy to sit there and think, my grass cannot go mature. And you become obsessed, at least I became obsessed with moving these girls so much and managing them so much that the minute I started to see seed heads popping up on the forage that was still ahead of them, the old way of thinking would have been, man, it's time to turn around. It's time to start over on the sections that we've already grazed. And spring is a great time to kind of talk about this, because most people, when it comes to that intensive management, the spring plan or the spring grazing plan is to give them large areas, move them very, very quickly, just top the plant, right? Just pull off the tip of as many plants as they can, as fast as they can, and keep everything in that vegetative state, because you don't want grass to get ahead of you. You don't want it to get away from you. And the tactic that I always bought into and really tried was, we're going to march our way through a pasture. The minute that we get to a section, basically, let's just say the next strip, and seed heads are coming out, and we go all the way back, and what we started on has fully recovered, which means no square edges on those blades. You have the pointed tip. At least three blades per plant, 3 leaf blades per plant. So what you have grazed already is fully recovered. You stop moving forward, send them all the way back, and you start bringing them through again, because now you're wanting to keep those plants in that vegetative state. You need to graze them in that phase 3 growth, and then everything left ahead of you that was going to boot stage, was getting ready to put on a seed head, you could mow it. You could stockpile it, but this early in the spring, a good strategy, and again, one that I bought into, was mow it. You can mow it for hay, but mow it, mulch it, set it back just like it would have been grazed, and then hopefully by the time that you continue working through what you've already grazed and you get to where you stopped originally, the stuff that you mowed high, again, you're just topping it, is recovered, and then you can keep on grazing. So this, for animal performance, this is key. I mean, this is amazing. You're going to have the healthiest animals, you're going to have the fattest animals, you're going to have the happiest animals. And for someone like myself who's trying to finish finish these animals on grass, you want as much energy to be getting into those full-grown bodies, like number 21, 22 ahead of me. Steer, he's heading in this fall. He will be butchered. Trying to keep him, he's mature. He has spent the last 2 years essentially putting all of his forage and growth into muscle and bone and frame, basically just growing into a mature animal. Now is a very important time that he needs to be getting very high energy forages to create that intermuscular fat. So essentially doing what a grain system would do to finish an animal. No more of that growth is going to his size. It is just strictly going right into fat, intermuscular fat. And the way that happens is he's obviously being fed very, very high energy proteins, very high energy forages. And that is young, growing, tender grass. Now you look at some of this stuff, and I'm gonna take some more video because this is not the worst. But you look at some of this stuff, and there is a seed head on it. Hi, buddy. Yep. But it's still a very green seed head. So they will have no problem eating this. They'll have no problem digesting this, right? This is very soft. This is very green. They're gonna love this stuff. Now, we get further up, and then it's even worse on the home ranch, and even worse on the lease pastures around the home ranch that haven't been touched yet. And you'll see that stuff is actually very mature. And everything looks green and great right now because, again, it's a cool morning, there's dew on it. But you look out here, and even worse, again, on the home place, you look out on the stuff that hasn't been touched yet at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's 80 degrees and sunny. And it's actually kind of starting to look a little brown, which means that the stuff is finally starting to mature and get a little stemmy. So the point I'm trying to make, context in my situation, is I cannot move the animals so fast that they are topping everything because my small acres is not connected. I have stuff that I own, I have stuff that I lease. Some of it is contiguous, right next door to each other. It's not convenient to move them next door, but I don't have to trailer them. And then some of it, like where the herd is at right now, is a handful of miles up the road that requires a lot of time, a lot of labor, and quite honestly, some stress just to get them out here because they have to be trailered, they have to be loaded. Perimeter fence back there and in this pasture is not complete. I've got one side that doesn't have perimeter fence, and I've got two sides that doesn't have perimeter fence. The 4-acre lease right next door to the home ranch has one side perimeter fence. The planted annual field that I do right next door that I have them graze, my summer annuals, that has no perimeter fence. I need 4 sides of perimeter fence set up. The point I'm trying to make is that it's easy to watch these producers and listen to these producers and read about these producers, and they say, move them fast, give them big areas, keep them moving. That's awesome when they own, 1,000 acres all contiguous right next to each other. Sure, they might have to walk a bit with their herd, but for the most part, their stuff is all connected. I mean, it's essentially like taking all 22 acres, which is what I'm up to now between what I own and what I lease, taking all 22 acres and being able to just strip graze them continuously. That would be fantastic. I would absolutely love that. But the fact of the matter is, a small operation that doesn't own a lot and has to lease a lot, man, nothing is close, nothing is convenient. And I'm not saying be afraid of work. I'm not saying I am scared of work. It's just become, with everything else I have going on in my life, and just the time that I'm spending essentially not making, and it's not about making money. I'm not doing this to make money, but I'm not making any money as it is because I have had no saleable product on the beef side of the operation yet. But if I was to be making money, I definitely wouldn't be paying myself. And the hourly rate and the hourly amount of time that I put in just to keep this herd moving, to try and keep them growing on grass, dude, there's no way I could sell enough animals or sell enough beef to pay for the amount of hours that I put into that. So it truly is a labor of love. And again, I'm not complaining. I mean, you have to do what you have to do, right? My only option for being a small operation in the middle of corn and soybean country in a particular area of Madison County, Iowa, that's like saturated with, I call them the 5 families. I love them all to death, but we've got some major families out here that have been out here for generations. And when something comes open or something goes for sale, or someone decides to get out of farming or ranching altogether out here, there's always some relative of that family that gets first right to that property. So it's expensive. There's no property available, and everything is going into corn and soy. So if I want to raise cattle in this manner, right, not a feedlot, if I want to raise cattle out here in this particular area that I'm at, and if I want to do right by the animals by trying to keep them as happy and healthy as possible, I don't have much choice but to put in the work that does not make economic sense. It does not make efficiency sense. It's a lot of time. So this is a very long way of me saying that when I first started, I would be working myself to death trying to keep those animals moving to keep that grass in check, right? Got to keep that grass growing, young, vegetative, tip it, take a lot, move quickly, all that stuff. I have since started to realize that my pastures just are not going to look like the people that I watch on YouTube or the books that I read about. The herd is going to get to that pasture when they get to it, and if it's a little mature, if it's a little stemmy, if there's a lot of seed heads on it, if it's not the most nutritious, that's all right, because I physically cannot be trailering this herd around from small pasture to small pasture for just a couple of days of grazing and keep it moving. It just doesn't make sense. So just my little tidbit of information for anyone out there who's starting. Questions, comments, concerns, sarcastic remarks, you know the drill. Leave them down below. I'll throw some footage out here of kind of what our pastures are looking like now, of what's ahead of us, so you can kind of get an idea on what I'm talking about. Everybody's feeling good this morning. All right, guys, that's it. Yeah, we'll talk to you guys later. And thanks again for following along. The progress of the channel is doing good. It seems to grow every day. Yeah, hope everyone's doing well.